Okay, so I just wanted to start by giving a little disclaimer that I in no way have hacked the system on group collaboration, making me the perfect person to work with. I am definitely human, and I have lots of failures and successes with every team that I work on. The point of this presentation is just to share some of the tips and tools that I've really carried over from my theater career and that I find really useful when I'm collaborating with people. So with that being said, and like my intro stated, I've spent about 10 plus years of my life as an actor and a theater creator, worked with vastly different groups of people, and I found that after I entered the software development field, there were a lot of similarities between the theater process and pushing out a new feature or creating an app. So for those of you that aren't familiar, I just wanted to walk you through the theater lifecycle real quick. A group of individuals is assembled. It's important to note that a lot of these individuals are strangers to each other, and they're definitely meeting for the first time. The group has been tasked with creating a product, or in the case of theater, a story. Paying clients are waiting to see the product on a set deadline. And in the professional theater community, it's often a tight deadline of about 3 weeks from that first rehearsal to when you have your first paying audience watching you. And the group has to figure out a way to work collaboratively through lots of risk and failure and conflict to meet the deadline and serve the story. So hopefully some similarities are poking out at you. Keeping this in mind, I'm going to share 4 tips and tools that I've really borrowed from this process in my software development. So the first one, building a diverse team. So the theater industry, just like the tech industry, is very slowly but gradually making their processes better for hiring and casting more diversely. But I really do believe that we need to hold ourselves accountable for being a part of that process. So we may not always be in control of how our team is hired or assembled, but you do have the ability to question those with that power. So take stock of some of the teams or groups that you work on, what perspectives are missing, what humans are missing in the room that you don't see represented. And if you're responsible for putting that group together, think about a plan for how you can invite that diversity into your group. And if you aren't responsible, go and question those who are. Ask them why you don't see these humans in their office or in your team, why these perspectives would be helpful for the technology that you're building. It might only plant a very small bug in their ear, but at least you're doing your due diligence for both the product that you're making, the people that should be in the room, and your overall experience. Because collaborating with a diverse team, it broadens your perspectives, it challenges the existing technologies that are centered on whiteness, and it creates applications that can speak to a wider audience. I'm kind of hoping with the Donut.js crowd that I'm preaching to the choir a little bit on that one. Thank you. I'm also really hoping that most of you have had the experience at least once of working on a marginally diverse team, and you're able to feel some of these tangible benefits because it's real. And the last thing I want to say about diversity is that in service to the diversity that you're allowing and inviting in, that you're also allowing existing systems and processes to shift and change. For example, I was working on a theater production that it's centered on 2 characters who are living with disabilities. The playwright insisted that those characters be cast by actors who actually live with those disabilities. And due to that and the theater doing a lot of partnerships and outreach, we welcomed a lot of diverse audiences that were coming to that theater for the first time. And a lot of that diversity was represented in people that were also living with disabilities. And what started to happen when we would encounter these audiences is some of the theater staff and my fellow castmates were getting very frustrated because there is this unspoken and rather archaic contract between the audience and the performer in theater, and it's the expectation that the audience will sit quietly and observe what the performer is doing. I think this has needed to change for quite a while, but I thought it was really unfair that we are inviting people into a space they haven't been to before and holding them to a standard that they may not know or that they can't exist within. A lot of the bodies, there were a lot of service animals, there was a lot of movement, there was noise, both voluntary and involuntary, and it was part of how their bodies were experiencing and interacting with that show. And it prompted a lot of conversations in that theater and amongst the cast about how we needed to change that contract and move forward. So all I'm asking is that when you're thinking about working diversely, hiring and inviting that diversity in is step one. Step two is then making space for the changes that might need to happen. So think about how you need to restructure your software development lifecycle or some of your processes to support the diversity you're inviting in. The second tip or tool I want to share is creating group agreements. Group agreements, it's a document that details how you like to work together, your communication style, individual thoughts and strengths and weaknesses. It can look so different. And in a software development environment, it might be literally how you want to, your process for building that software. It could be centered more on how you as a team want to take care of each other emotionally. It could be both. I have not always made one when I've worked in a tech team or in a theatrical production, but I think they're really helpful when you have a lot of diversity in your team, when there's already a lot of conflict that exists, or when you're dealing with sensitive material. Another way I like to think about group agreements is it's basically giving your team the ability to make their own code of conduct, and it also allows for that space for the diversity that exists on your team. And I really like thinking about it as a code of conduct because a lot of us probably work in groups or teams that are under a larger company, and that company has its own code of conduct. And perhaps it is not quite inclusive as you would like. Maybe there are large holes. Maybe you don't feel represented in it. So creating these group agreements, I think, gives the team some power back to say, no, this is how we'd like to take care of each other. This is how we want our process to look. And it can exist within that larger code of conduct. And I also think it's very helpful to refer back to when conflict arises. The reason it's called group agreements is that every person on your team has to agree to what's written on the paper. That gives you a baseline of accountability for every single person on your team. So I would hope this wouldn't have to be a group agreement, but let's just say I make a group agreement with my team that no one's going to talk over each other during morning stand-up. Say that it's happened twice in a row that week, and I'm starting to get a little frustrated. The next morning I can just say, hey, I just want to point the team back to our group agreements. I've been interrupted a couple times during stand-up. I just want to hold us to this accountability that we all agreed to. It can be an easier way of starting those conversations. The third tip is this phrase, yes and. Has anybody heard of this one? Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, lots of y'all. So for those that haven't, generally it's talked about in an improv setting for theater. I think it's applicable to all life. But basically what it means is yes, I hear your idea, and means I want to build on it. So it's much healthier if you're a team member of mine and you toss an idea my way, rather than being like, oh, no, that's not going to work though because of this, and this. It's a lot better if I just say, yes, and tell me more about that. Because I'm allowing the idea to grow and breathe a little bit, I can learn from it. And if I immediately shut it down, not only will you maybe feel invalidated and not heard, but I'm missing out the opportunity to learn what could have happened with that idea. And I've used this in kind of two different scenarios in software development, both with initial brainstorming and when you are literally typing code with another person. And I think when you're brainstorming, this is super important. Everybody on the team, that's a time to get messy with your ideas, to break them open, to build on them and smash them together. So I think it's really important to allow that to happen. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Maybe you toss out an idea and I'm like, whoa, that is such a different direction from where I want to go. But a yes and to that can look like, oh wow, I'm really intrigued by that idea. Could you tell me more about it? Or what would happen with that idea in this scenario? Just question it a little bit and affirm it so you can build it up. And I think when you're coding, literally typing with another person, I think this is just as useful. This is a hard part for me, I will admit, because sometimes when I'm coding with another person and they're like, hey, I really want to try this code, it can feel like I'm giving over to wasting time a little bit if I'm pretty certain that code's not going to work for X or Y or Z reason. However, I'm making an assumption about how the code is going to behave, and I'm probably going to spend less or more time arguing about it or discussing it than if I just say, yeah, let's go ahead and try that. I think this might happen, but I'm curious to see. Like, let's just learn from the code rather than talking about it. That's a reminder to myself, as much as me sharing that with you. This last one is also a phrase, hold on tightly, let go lightly. I learned about it through Anne Bogart. She's a theater maker who I absolutely love. And I use this phrase all the time. I carry it with me when I'm working collaboratively. And the phrase is basically illustrating the dichotomy between being able to fight tooth and nail for your ideas, and being able to also let them go gracefully when they are no longer serving the app or whatever it is that you're creating. So looking at just that first part, I personally think it is so important to fight for your ideas when you're creating something. I think when you're fighting for your ideas in a project, it forces you to be specific about what you're fighting for, to craft arguments around it, to be able to convince your team of why it's important. It gives you a tie to the overall project and injects some more passion into it. And also, your perspective is important. You are an individual on that team who deserves to be heard. Looking at the second half, let go lightly, it's just as important. Maybe your app has had a huge pivot, or maybe something just isn't working anymore. It's important to just let that go gracefully and not waste time trying to clench onto it and just move forward. And I know that this one can be super difficult, especially if, say, I've worked on a feature for maybe 10 hours and it functions exactly how I want it to. It's beautiful, but maybe it doesn't have an actual job in the app, or maybe it's clouding some other important features functionality. I just need to let it go. And it's harder to do when you have put all that time and energy into it and it works so well. Just save it for something else, or sometimes with some groups we've created a dead board where we get to put the ideas that we had to kill up on the board. So make some fun out of it, honor it a little bit. You can be sad about it, but you gotta let it go. And I'm gonna wrap up with, sometimes it's difficult for me at least, to tell the difference between when I need to hold on tightly and when I need to let go lightly. So one of the ways I try to break it down for myself is, when you're fighting for a feature with specificity and reason, then you're serving the overall app, and it's time to hold on tightly. But if you are really grasping onto a feature that has really long been dismissed, and you can hear it from your group, hear how many times people are saying, no, ooh, but this, and it's really been dismissed for a while, then you need to drop it and just move forward. So with that, I'm gonna make this terrible segue and say I'm gonna let go lightly of this presentation. I'm gonna say thank you. I really love talking about all the ways that theater and software development collide and dreaming up new ways that they can collide. I also love to collaborate. So if you wanna talk more about any of those things, find me any of these places, or we can chat on one of the breaks over at Donut. So thank you so much.